So, ChatGPT, is it just a tool? Did you know that you can actually use ChatGPT to access the internet? Well, okay, maybe not ChatGPT, but the GPT API. Did you know that you can use it to feed an ungodly amount of information to, and it still works? Did you know that you can feed it files and have it analyze files? So that's what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to take a deep dive into the inner workings of the API so that you can use it as a more powerful tool for your cybersecurity career, your tasks, learning, everything. Coming right up. What's up, everybody? Hey, everybody in the chat, I see you. Finally made it after last week. We were a little late, but hey, Alex, what's up? And Carrie and Alicia and everybody else that's in chat. So today's going to be a little different. I know in the previous, I guess the description of what we're doing today, and we talked about it over the last couple of weeks, is we talked about we were going to do some of the ideas that we took from last week in terms of using the scripts that we generated with Python and some of the Nmap outputs, and we're going to put that to the test this week. So part of the reason why that I didn't do a stream last week on this was because I went down a rabbit hole. I went down a big rabbit hole, and I learned a lot of things, and I found out that ChatGPT itself, we were using ChatGPT to generate a lot of these, I guess, I almost want to call them parlor tricks. What's up, Cactoid? Good to see you. I kind of want to say, like, yeah, it could be useful, and we were experimenting with the fact that there's some things that we can use and maybe be useful for assessments and pen tests. But what I found out was that it was really limited. I even tried to do some things to where I can upload files, and it just really wasn't working out for me. And I even tried out some of the output that it gave me, and it was okay, but it was limited in the amount of data that you can send to it. If you've used ChatGPT, you've realized that there's a couple things and a couple limitations that it has. Number one, you only have a 4,000 character limit. And so that's a combination of the data that you're sending it, the tokens you're sending it, but also the data that you're getting back. So it's a total of 4,000, not characters, I'm sorry, tokens. And a token, it comes out to roughly, it's a part of a word. So that's a problem. It doesn't access the internet, and you can't, it would be better if you could just have it read files. So I started playing around with it, and I started learning, and I'll show you I forgot to provide a link, but I'll do that in the description after this presentation. But I started learning from this guy, Chris, who has been writing a lot of scripts and has been really getting into the deep dive of the API, not just ChatGPT, but the GPT API. And so that's when I realized that that's where we need to take this. So what I want to do in starting with this, and by the way, you might have noticed that I put the old intro back in because this isn't really a red versus blue thing. So I put the old intro back in, and we're almost kind of renewing the series, because what we're going to do, I want to take this first one here, and I want to start laying the foundation to dive into the actual the GPT API to increase the capabilities. A lot of people are using this for content creation. Some people have, flipped their lids over, well, it's plagiarism and all of that. And where I found that it excels, ChatGPT is generating ideas, helping generate code. It's a helper, it shouldn't do your job for you, but it can augment what you do. And that's what we're going to be using it for security purposes. And in order to do that, we have to lay the proper groundwork. and understand how to use the API. Once we understand that, we can start really expanding upon the power of the API and all the stuff that we can do. So that's what we're going to get into. First thing I want to show you, and some of you have already seen this. If you're on my Discord, you've seen this. And this is kind of where the power of API is going. And Alex in the chat, Alex he's inspired me, because I guess I inspired him, and now he's in turn inspired me to show you guys this, that some of the techniques and the things that you can do with the new AI stuff is getting pretty scary. And I actually had it recreate my voice, and I had it create my avatar. And the reason I'm telling you this now before we get started is just kind of want to ease into this, show you something really cool, little freaky before we get into the nuts and bolts. But this has implications in social engineering, deep fakes, and things like that. So it's not perfect, but with some tweaking, I can get it better. So this is a little intro. Check this out. It's missing the hat, but Alex will complain about that. But here is the deep fake of me. Tell me what you think.
Welcome to Introduction to Cyber Incident Response. In this course, we will cover the fundamentals of incident response and equip you with the knowledge and skills necessary to create an effective incident response plan, playbooks, and tabletop exercises so that your team is well prepared to respond to any cyber incident.
All right, so sorry for the shameless plug there, but just wanted to show you guys how like creepy it can actually be. So so Kerry said he could tell it was not the real me. Those of you those that know me well, or that see me on a regular basis, yeah, you can tell. Number one, so the voice is pretty dead on. The voice is through 11 labs. I'm pretty impressed with the voice. The video avatar, it's a little off. The mouth looks fake. So, but the thing is that's just, that was just the free version of the avatar. That was through Movio. And I think that with some tweaking, some more time put in, you can make the thing pretty convincing. So, so that's pretty freaky. And I'll show you where you can do that real quick if you're interested before we get the main thing started here. So 11 Labs it's beta.11labs.io, and there is a free version, but you literally just type in text there. And I don't have I'm not going to show you a demo here, but because I'm not passing audio through my system audio through, but you type it in there, and literally in a few seconds, and I've pasted up to like 4,000 characters. So you can do up to 5,000 characters. So it'll generate, but what you can do is you can go into the voice lab and you can actually have it clone your own voice. And so you submit about 2 to 5 minutes worth of audio samples, and it does a pretty good job of cloning your voice. And so then you can use it to do whatever. So then the next part is Movio. And so what I did was you go to create, so your avatars, it comes with all of these avatars, and they're very realistic. They're done professionally. And then it comes with a bunch of voice. So as you can tell here, I had them do my own avatar, and I did the avatar light. So it's not as good as the professional ones, but you can do the professional ones. It's like $1,000 a year though to have it. And so when you go to create the video, you will select what avatar you want to use. You can actually put in pictures. It'll do kind of like what is it? DI.io, I forgot what it was, but it'll animate pictures, still pictures. It's really cool. But so you select the avatar. There's me. Look at that handsome guy. And then you can either type in text or use audio script. So I'll take 11 labs, and I'll take the audio script that it generated, and I'll upload the audio script, and it'll create the animated avatar based off of the audio script, that the MP3. So that's pretty cool. Alex, you're asking how clean do the voice samples have to be? So it's going to reflect whatever voice samples you send it. So if it's echoey, it's going to be an exact replication. If there's echoey, you don't want noises in the background. I used my audio setup here to get as clean as I could. So, I mean, it's got to be relatively clean. Carrie said that it would have been more realistic with the hat. I agree, but I'm doing this for some professional purposes. And so, wanted to, I don't know, maybe the hat is me. Maybe I'll redo it with the hat. Either way, it's really cool. It's really freaky. You should check it out. And so, all right. So anyway, let's get started. So what we're going to do, and I don't want to scare everyone off right off the bat. I do want to let everyone know. Cactoid says evil Clint has no hat. That's right. This is the good me. That other one was the evil me. It was the sales me. So what we're going to dive into today is going to be using the API, and there's going to be some code involved, but let me reiterate, excuse me, I've had a cold lately. Let me reiterate that if code scares you, don't worry, because number one, the code that we're doing is really simple. It's minimal. And I'm going to provide all of the scripts that I'm doing here for these tools. I'm going to provide the scripts in a GitHub repository, and I'll give you guys access to the GitHub repository. And we'll try to work with these tools, or we'll build these tools, sorry, in a way to where if you're not a coder, you don't need the code. You can just use the tools however you want. I mean, so you'll see what I'm talking about when we get there. But if you do like code, if you like Python, if you've been wanting to dive into it, welcome aboard, because here we go. So the first thing that you're going to need, regardless of whether you want to code or not, and so you're going to need, there we go. Let's forget about Python for right now. I mean, ChatGPT. So first thing you're going to need is Python. And I'm just going to go ahead and shamelessly admit right now that I am using Windows. The reason I'm using Windows for all of this is because it's a lot easier for me to use the Windows with my streaming, with all of this. So everything that I do here is going to be Windows. But I prefer, when I'm doing coding, Python, any security work, I prefer Linux or Mac. And I can't believe I just said that I prefer Mac, but the Mac OS is growing on me. So, because it's got that BSD backend, which is Linux-like. So you want to download Python here. You get the latest, you click on downloads, go to all releases, click on whatever version, and just install. Now, it is important that whenever you're installing this, I can't reinstall it and show you because I already installed it, but when you're installing this, there'll be a checkbox that says make or add python.exe to path. You want to check that, and everything else is just click the defaults. All right. So the next thing that you're going to need is an editor. Now I'm going to be using Visual Studio, and that's because I use Visual Studio for all of the coding that we do for the game and all that. So I'm going to use Visual Studio, but another really good one to use, if you're on, really it's for all platforms, is just Notepad++. Notepad++, it'll do code recognition. It has line numbers. There's a lot of cool things you can do with Note++, but that's kind of, it doesn't use it doesn't do autocomplete. It doesn't do code tips or anything like that. So that's another reason why I'm using Visual Studio. All right. So let's go ahead and switch over to Visual Studio. So, and let's go back to our test. All right. This is literally all the code that you need to get started. This is Python. And I understand that some of this may be basic for some of you. This may be a refresher or even a snoozer for those of you that already know Python, for those of you that are experienced pen testers. But here's my thoughts. I want to make this for everyone. I want to make this for beginners as well as for people who are advanced. And it's also, here's the thing, that according to the title of this course, of this stream, being this is part 3, this is the one we want to do for pen testing. If you want to get into penetration testing, vulnerability research, some of the more technical aspects of cybersecurity, you need to love exploration. You need to not have a fear of code and technology. And so it's really important that if you really, I mean, it's fine if you're doing the administrative parts or the cybersecurity management or GRC, still good to know Python for automation and things like that. It's good to know PowerShell. You don't need to code. However, if you are interested in more of the technical vulnerability assessments, the penetration testing, you might as well get into code. And this is a good start. This is a fun way to start learning. So anyway, getting back into it. So a couple things that we're going to do here is, once you've installed Python, you can check this. And I'm using PowerShell here. So hopefully you can see this. Let me know if you can't. But you can type Python -- version to make sure it's installed, and it tells you right there that's the version that's installed. So also, you're going to need to install the OpenAI library. So the way that you would do that is type pip install OpenAI. And it's going to give me this because I already have it installed, but that'll let you know that it'll do this download thing, and it'll tell you when it's installed. So then you'll have the API library. Another one that you're going to need is BS4 for some things we'll do later. So you might as well do that, and that is PIP. That's the package manager for lack of a better phrase, for Python. So install BS4. That's not BS as in what you're thinking. So you'll do that one. And I already have it installed. What this is going to do is this is going to help us with some of the web functions later. And that's really all we need for now. And I don't know if we'll get to that part today, but we'll see. All right. Well, let's go back to code here. So what we're doing here is we're importing the different libraries that we need. We need the OpenAI library because we're going to be using functions and methods from OpenAI's libraries. And we need the OS because we're going to be accessing files in OS. So to make this simple, we have 3 main functions here. We have the ability to open a file, save a file, and then talk to OpenAI. And that's really it. So opening a file, and here's a neat little trick. So when you're learning, here's where ChatGPT does come in handy. So we're going to copy this code. I hit Control-C or Command-C if you're on a Mac to copy the code. Now let's go back over to our browser and go back into ChatGPT. And if I type in explain the following code to me. There you go. This is a Python function to open file that takes a single parameter file path, which is a string representing a file to a path, and it gives you the explanation, tells you pretty much everything you need to know about that function. So if we do the same thing to, like, say, let's go to that the OpenAPI version and so it's pretty up to date. And it gives you everything you need. What's really nice here is that it'll actually tell you all the different parameters that you can use for this function, which is nice, because before you can do, you should and can do it the hard way, the long way, which is going to the platform.openapi.com. It's the documentation. It's the API documentation. So, or you can do it the easy way. Trivia, where's that from? The easy way. So, all right, going back to here. So what it's doing, it's calling a function to open a file, and then you're going to tell it what file to open. And then the reason why we have R here, it's going to open the file. R means read only, and it's going to encode it in standard characters. We're going to give it a name as an end file, or we're going to, actually it's typecasting, but and then we're going to return it, the contents. So saving the file is the same thing, but this time instead of opening with read only, we're going to open it for write. W means for write access. And then instead of just returning the file, we will actually write the contents of the file. And we'll see that in action here in a minute. Now, in order to access OpenAPI, you need to supply an API key. And you'll do that. This is not ChatGPT. So let's see. I actually did not provide. Let's see here. Let's go into a new, let's see. Oh, yes, I'm using Bing because of the chat functionality in Bing. So if you go here to just openai.com, you should be able to, where's my sign in? Platform. Well, that's pretty interesting there. You can see my account usage. I've only spent 12 cents and I've been using this thing all week. So it's pretty inexpensive. It's not free, but I mean, so far, so ChatGPT is $20 a month for the plus. And I will probably spend less than $20 a month using the API. So you do the math. All right. So you have API keys here in your account. You have API keys. I'm not going to go there because I don't want to show you my API key. Go figure. But what we're going to do, let's go to the desktop here and show you. We're actually going to create a file, and this may be smaller, a little bit too small for you to read, but we're going to create a file called, where's it? OpenAPI-key.txt. And at that point, all you're going to do is copy the API key exactly as it is in from the browser and just paste it into a text file as it is, and that's it. That's all you have to do. So then what's going to happen is you're opening that file and it's going to assign the contents of that file to the API key of OpenAPI. And so that's pretty simple. And then that's going to automatically be used whenever you send the request to OpenAPI. All right. Whenever you connect to the API, there's really mainly going to be two parts. There's going to be the settings and there's going to be the prompt. Okay, and there's the third part. And then there's the response. The settings is going to connect to OpenAPI, the OpenAI's API, and then and I'm not going to get into too much what it does here, but this is creating the request. You're going to give it the model. There's several different models that you can use, and you can even go ask ChatGPT what the different OpenAI models are. Text DaVinci 003 is the most advanced, but it's also the most expensive. It's about 2 cents per 1,000 tokens. Still, I've used 12 cents so far. There's a new one out, which is the GPT 3.5 Turbo. And that one is meant more for replicating a chatbot. So in subsequent streams here, subsequent videos, we'll show you how to actually replicate the functionality of ChatGPT and create your own chatbot. And so the advantage there is the API goes down a lot less than ChatGPT, and ChatGPT It gets, as you know, if you're not using Plus, it gets congested. It becomes unavailable. It gets slow. The API doesn't do that often, hardly ever, and it's faster. And if you're using it, so I mean, I'm using the crap out of this thing, and I'm spending way less than $12, way less than $20 a month. So if you can replicate the functionality of ChatGPT plus all the extra stuff that we're getting here in the API, that's a huge advantage. So we're going to cover all of that in subsequent weeks here. That's why I said this is a wild ride. We're going to be diving deep. We're going to be blowing the doors off of what most people are doing with regular ChatGPT. All right. So you have you have Codex, you have Text DaVinci. So right now we're just going to use this one. We'll do more later. Then you have the prompt. So here's where we're establishing the prompt, this variable. I'm not going to get into too much of the mechanics of Python and all the different variables and all the different coding mechanics. If you do want to do more of a instructional Python, there's a good idea would be to have a separate streaming series to where we teach Python using OpenAI API or something like that. That'd be cool. Otherwise, I'm just going to explain it in basic terms. So you establish the prompt, and you establish it with this text here in this file. So if we go look at that file, okay, there we go. So we had our prompt text. If you open that up, so I'm just giving this is what you would normally do in the ChatGPT. Okay. So instead of typing it into a text field, we're providing our prompts in this file, and it opens our file, and you'll understand the advantage of that later when we get into it. So I'm going to tell it, give me a list of the top 5 healthiest fruits. All right, so we'll get back to that. All right. So it gets the prompt, it inserts the prompt into the request there, and then you have these other parameters. And the only two that you really need to be concerned about right now are the temperature and the max tokens. So what the temperature is, it goes from 0 to 1. This is the creativity or the amount of, I guess, leeway that you give it. If you're looking for a more creative response, so if you're looking for it to do something such as give me ideas or something like that, then you want this all the way at 1. You want it to be really creative. If you are looking for just facts, if you're looking for look through this text and tell me how many of this or that, then you want it closer to 0. So all the way to 1, it's going, a lot of the times it'll go rogue on you too. So that's, if you've ever used ChatGPT and had it get really wild and crazy and just stray off course, that's really where this is, as the temperature and the creativity is far to number 1 or to 1 there. Whereas if you're looking for that's some of the control you have here, is you can adjust for different things. You can adjust how crazy your responses are, or how straight line they are. So all right. So, and then the max tokens, this is how many tokens it responds back with. So keep in mind that for a single request, the GPT prompt can only accept 4,000 tokens. And the total token count is going to be made up of the request that you send it plus what it responds back to, and that's going to be a total of 4,000. So I have a couple things. So Roy, good to see you, Roy. He said that he would recommend also, you know what, let's just say this. Yeah, there we go. So I would also recommend just doing the basic Python client for starters. That's a good point. That is an excellent point, just using the Python client. Or you can even just do it in a terminal as well, coding that way. And so, okay, so we're about ready to start our first little test here. And so what this is going to do, once it sends it, it's going to read the prompt, it's going to send it, and then it's going to respond with, it's going to have a response. So the response, it's assigning all of this to a response variable, and then the text is going to be response. And I could have just put response here, but there's a reason why later I'm separating this. And then we're going to print this out to the terminal. So let's take a look at this real quick and see what happens. All right, so this is we're going to type Python. Then we're going to type, what was it? The test one. All right, and it gives you all of this stuff. So it's important to see all of this because you may want to use this later. However, this is not very human readable. And so it's going to give you, down here, it tells you the total tokens. So now remember when I just mentioned that it gives you the completion tokens plus the prompt token. So the prompt was 12 and it gave us 26 tokens back for a total of 38. And then, but here's the response that we wanted. So how do we clean this up? But this is all the different stuff. How do we clean this up? Well, let's look at our next example here. It's pretty simple. All we're going to do is add this little piece here. This chops up that output into just what you want. So if you notice here, you have the choices in this block. So it's going to chop up the response and the choices. So if you look, excuse me, choices, and here's the block. So all this stuff here. So basically what we're telling it is all we want is the choices and the text, and I'd have to look at what the zero, the basic. I'm not exactly sure what this one is here, the zero. If someone knows, let me know. But then we want the text, and then the strip is going to strip out all the stuff that we don't need. So if we look at this again, so it's just going to give us choices and the text, and it's going to strip out all these. It's going to strip out the new. I guess it's going to strip out the white spaces, and it's going to strip out the quotation marks. It's going to strip out all this stuff. All right. So if we run this version now, we'll see what happens. All right. That's two. And there we go. It just gives you a list in human readable form. All right. So there we go. We got this far. Let's take it a step further. Now let's get into some cool stuff. So I want to send it files to analyze. So instead of just sending it a prompt, instead of just sending it, Cactoid said, wait. What do you want me to wait on? You telling me to wait? So I want to be able to send it things. No, it said grapefruit for number 5 originally, but the output, but it output. Yes. So you're right. That is the creativity aspect there, Cactoid. So it gave me one list first, and then the second time it gave me a different list. They are separate API calls, separate GPT calls. Yes, Alex, they're separate. So it gave me different lists. Now, here's something interesting. I don't think it'll show too much variance there, but we could modify the creativity level or whatever. But we'll just looking at that a little further. So instead of just providing, let's just do this real quick. Let's modify the prompt just so you can see how we do that. So, all right. So instead of, okay, what's the prompt here actually? Which prompt are we dealing with here? I think, so this is analyze 2. So we're dealing with just prompt.text. Okay. So let's open up give me a list of the top 5 healthiest fruits. Let's do something else. Let's say, what are the top 3 most used programming languages? Save that. All right, so we'll run that again. Let's just do this. There you go. So it gives you something different. So let's do another prompt that's more indicative of, say, in ChatGPT. So let's go. Okay. Give me 10 ideas for a cybersecurity blog post. Go. Save it. And there you go. So it gives you the functionality of ChatGPT. Now, but we don't have a running session, and we don't have this. It's a one hit. And so we will, in 2 or 3 streams from now, 2 episodes, whatever you want to call it, I'll show you how to replicate the ChatGPT functionality so that you can use it just like ChatGPT. But let's do one more real quick. So we'll say, okay, well, oh, and by the way, it's also spitting this out into maybe not. You can log this out to a file. This one is not logging it out. So here, that's a good, thanks, Roy. So Roy says that he has a blog article for the basics of starting Python learning. So awesome. If you want to put the link to that, and the you should be able to paste the link in chat. I'll share that if you want to, Roy. All right. So let's get back to, okay, so let's say, let's take one of those blog articles. The growing threat of cyber attacks. I don't know, what's a good one here? An overview of cryptocurrency security issues. There we go. That looks fun. All right. So let's oops. There we go. Okay, let's see. Write a short, let's see. Let's do this one. So write a 500 word blog post on the following topic. Here we go. All right. Save that. And let's see what it gives us. Now, this might be interesting. All right. It may not give us all of the 500 words. Now, it's taking a little bit to generate. It may not give us all 500 words because I limited the token count. Yeah. So that's pretty good. Now we'll need to spit this out. Let's spit this out to a file so we can actually read it. But notice it cuts us off because we limited the response tokens. So let's modify that a little bit. And let's have this spit out to a file so that we can access it later. Now, keep in mind, for those of you that are looking for more advanced techniques here, we can use OS calls to start doing things like running Nmap using Python. Those of you that know how to do this, you know how to run security tools with Python, doing Nmap and all this stuff like that. And you could start feeding in the information from these outputs into ChatGPT for analysis. That's what we're going to do here in a minute. So let's go back and change this a little bit. All right, so let's change our token count. Let's change it to 1,000. Maybe that'll give us enough. We're gonna mess with the creativity here in a little bit. Also, we want to output this to a file. So we're going to, if you look here, I'll show you this later. I'm just gonna copy this. What we're doing here, we're actually doing the save file function. We're gonna call this log output. We'll create that file and pump it out there. And then we need to pass in text. Because we're passing in what we're printing out to the console, text. We're going to save that. And now we're going to rerun this. And so what you're getting here is it takes about the same amount of time for it to generate here as it does with ChatGPT. The difference is ChatGPT shows you a running scroll of everything being typed out. Whereas, all right, looks like we got everything here. And let's go check our file. But so this doesn't run concurrently. So it waits until it's all finished, then it throws the output at you. All right. So it should have created blog output, which it did here. And there you go. So now you have all that text sent to a text file. And okay, let's save this. I'm gonna save this as a blog output backup, because I want to compare this. I want to change the creativity. All right, so. And by the way, don't just use this for your content. Go and check this on plagiarism checkers. Add your own spice and flavor to this. Don't be one of those people that just uses this without customizing it. All right, so let's keep that one. Now, let's go check out. Let's do another one. Let's change the. Let's change this to 0.3. 0.3. Let's remove the creativity. Let's shift it more over to like kind of just boring, I guess. And let's change the output to, we can keep that the same. All right, now let's check this out. All right, let's clear this. All right. So let's compare these two. Let's go back to the desktop and all right, let's grab this one. Let's get this to where we can see these. Let's grab the other one. Oh, the backup. Oh, I guess I also. All right. Come on. Move. There you go. All right. Let's get the. Oh, that's the wrong one. Oops. Come on. I need my coffee. All right, you know what? You go away. Let's open up the other one. There we go. And come on. Oh wait, that was the blog output and the blog backup. Here we go. All right, let's reduce this a little bit. We could see it all. Woo. All right, so That's the blog output and the blog backup. Wait, no, blog output. Okay, here we go. I know if you're like my wife, you're watching me do this stuff and you're like, no, right there. No, click there. No, you almost, nope. Anyway. All right. I imagine this is probably what, so a couple of you also have watched my other streams on my private channel, not my private, but my personal channel on doing video game, playing indie games, Let's Plays. And some of you used to yell at me, I know. All right. So here's the difference. This is the more creative one. Notice this and this one here. I don't know if that's 500 necessarily 501. Which one of these can't do a word count from just the notepad? But anyway, so you can look at the difference here. And this one, just I'm not going to really go through an analysis of this right now, but like what's different about it. But you can see there's definitely a difference in size, quantity, and the language used, going from a full creative output of 1, the temperature of 1, and almost down to 0. This one is a lot drier, for lack of a better phrase. Anyway, all right. So there's that. Okay, let me clean some of this stuff up. All right. So now, yeah, the backup version seems more salesy. Maybe so. Okay. Oops, didn't mean to do that. All right. Roy's laughing at something. All right. So now let's talk more about how to use inserts, more files. And we can actually use variables. And in this case, let's do something more cybersecurity related. Okay. So let's look at a more in-depth script here. So we're almost out of time. That's perfect because we'll get this one done and then we'll jump more in depth on the next stream. So everything's the same here, but this time we're doing, where's it at? Oh yeah, okay. So this time with the prompt, we're adding in a replace something here. And the reason why, so we're doing two things. First of all, we're adding you to enter a file name. So instead of giving it just a prompt, we're going to feed it. We're actually going to give it a prompt, and then we're going to feed it the contents of another file. Okay, so that's what we're doing here. We're saying enter a file name. We're going to give it a file that's called file. And then we're going to open this file that we've created, and we're going to call that content feed. Now, this is being redundant. We probably didn't need to do that. We probably could have just done file. Well, anyway, we're going to take the contents of that file, and that's going to be called our feed. Then in the prompt, we're going to open our prompt. The prompt text is going to be, what do we want to do with the data? Okay. And then here's what that's going to look like. So we open up prompt 3. Oops, that's not what I meant to do. All right. So this prompt, let's get it to where you can actually read it a little better. All right. So from the following text, provide a summary of the security posture for the device scanned. So what are we feeding it then? I'm going to be feeding it a Nessus scan. Okay. And that's going to be input. I'm going to insert it into the prompt here using this formatted text here called input. And so we're going to replace input in that text with the contents of the file that we're specifying. Okay, and then everything else, then it's going to give an analysis output and it's going to spit everything out. So we're going to find something interesting here. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to use this file here. Okay, it's 10.10. It's an IP address, 10.10.151, and it's a Nessus scan output to a CSV file. If you really want to look at what that looks like. Okay, it's basically that, and there's some really long stuff here. Okay, so it's Nessus output. All right, so that's what it is. No, I don't want to save it. All right, so we're going to take this. We're just going to copy this file name. Okay. You know what? If I'm doing this right, I don't need to keep switching screens. I can just keep using the desktop. That's what I'll do. All right. So now let's clear this out. Oops. What am I? That is weird. Okay. All right. Clear. So now we're going to run. We're going to run analyze. Oh. What was it? Analyze.py. Here a file name. We're going to paste in the file name that we're inserting. Bam, crash. Why is that? Because that entire file is 547,795 tokens. That's insane. How can we do that? We'll talk. Let's trim this down first so we can at least get this working. And then I'll show you how to take in large files of data for analysis in another stream or two. For now, let's take a little bitty teeny tiny chunk of that. So let's look at this one here. So let's just take a look real quick. If we open up, and that's just the first thing that I did was, so you have all these here that say none. And there's another, I have another script, which I don't have here, but if there's no risk, then I don't worry with it. So that's just informational. So I strip out, I trim all of that. All right. So then what you end up with is just actual CVS. And then I'll also strip out if there's no CVSS score. I'll rip it out sometimes because it's low risk. I'll rip those out. Even this much here, just this much text here was too much for it. So I stripped it down even further just for training purposes here. And we ended up with just this. All right. So synopsis, and there's a lot of data here still because it's synopsis description. There's a lot of stuff there. It's just not, it's not text wrapping properly. So if we actually go to format this, yes, the replay will be available afterwards on YouTube. So there, go to our YouTube channel and you'll be able to watch this, the recording of this on YouTube on our videos. So let's do alignment. Let's wrap all the text. What the heck? All right. So there's a lot of text here. Anyway, so there's a lot. So let's run that one and just show you what it does. All right, let's clear this. Here, let's get a nice, yeah. Do that again. Okay, let's enter that file name. Let that run. Bam. The security posture of the device scanned indicates that it is vulnerable to man-in-the-middle attacks, as the remote desktop protocol server stores a hard-coded RSA private key and the SSL version, blah, 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 blah. Okay. So that's what it gives you. And we still have our creativity on this. Okay, this is a 0.7 on this one. And I have output to 600. So if I tell it to, allow more for that. And then let's modify our prompt and say, okay, from the following text, provide a summary of the security posture of the device scanned. The average CVSS score, the highest CVSS score. What else? What else can we provide? And top, and the top 3 mitigation recommendations. Okay. All right. Try that out. And oh, by the way, that was also spit out to, where did we spit that out to? Analysis output. So if we look at analysis output, it was right there. All right, let's do this again. Let's get that same file. Oh, what happened? That's because we have already, the prompt is too many. So let's do this. Let's open this back up. That's fine. Let's cut down the amount of, let's just go back to 600. Oh, yeah, that should be fine, I think. We can write some exceptions to give us a better output of the error and stuff like that, but for right now, we're just doing this raw. Okay. All right, so the security posture of the device scanned is weak with an average CVSS score of 5.1 and a highest CVSS score of 7.1. The top 3 mitigation recommendations. So notice before, it gave a more thorough analysis, but then now it gave us less of an analysis, but it then gave us specifically what I told it to give me. So later we can do a further formatted output with a better designed prompt and things like that, which we'll cover next time. But hopefully now you're starting to see now how we can use Python. And by the way, one of the reasons we're using Python because OpenAI API is written in Python. And so that's going to be right now, the preferred method. And it's simple, as you can see, to do this. So hopefully this is starting to give you a bit of a foundation on how we can start to use more of the API, more of the power of the API to do more things like feed it files, take a CSV file and feed it in, combine it with a prompt, and then start to have it do analysis. So now some more things that we want to tackle in the next few streams is we want to be able to give it more data. And there's a way to do that. We'll talk about how to give it larger files. In fact, the guy who's teaching me this, Chris, and I'll provide the link to his channel in the description, and I'll cover it next stream. But he took an entire book in the form of a PDF file and used that and did analysis and summarized the book and all that stuff. So there are ways to feed in more data. So then there's other things that we want to start doing, right? Excuse me. We want to start feeding it. Maybe like we want to start combining it with other things that we're doing, like OSINT analysis or Nmap output and just full vulnerability scans, all these things. We'll get into how to actually use this for OSINT. You can feed it live internet information. So even though GPT is not connected to the internet, there are ways to connect it. There are ways to feed it live internet data for analysis. So you can have it scrape websites. You can have it do OSINT. You can have it do a lot of different things to help automate. And one of the biggest things for me is having this automate reports, automate output, automate the analysis of reports and output, and then also doing things like writing reports and all that. So we'll talk about all this as we move forward, and then we'll even talk about how to replicate the actual chat functionality more efficiently and actually in better ways to be this kind of sidekick, this like junior developer or analyst by your side as you do all this. So anyway, so that's what we're doing. We're gonna it's not just for pen testing or analysis, but this is gonna be, we're gonna use this for the more, not even just the more technical, but because writing reports and doing GRC is not even technical, but we're going to use the actual API. And in future streams, we're using the actual API to leverage more power out of the GPT and OpenAI's GPT, as opposed to just using ChatGPT. So with that, thanks everybody for joining me. We're a little bit over time, but hopefully you learned something. If there's something that you want me to cover moving forward, let me know in the comments and we'll see what we can cover. So other than that, thanks everybody. We appreciate it and we'll see you next time.